To 24A we head to. This is down in the south of the metro area, including the fantastic city of Owatonna. We are heading on down to Joe Heegard. He is joining us as Democrat of the Day today to talk about his campaign. Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate the time today.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
My absolute pleasure. Of course, it's you're just south of the metro area. Like I said, I mentioned Owatonna, but also Waseca is also in your district, correct?
Right, Owatonna and Waseca, those are the two main towns, but also including 7 rural townships.
You
in Steele and Waseca County.
It is relatively close to the metro area, but I would still say this. I mean, I talked to a few of the districts that are just north of you, and I said, you're kind of becoming part of the metro, and whether you like it or not, I don't know why. For the life of me, I don't know why people would drive that far. But your district, I can guarantee, is still. It is not part of the Twin Cities Metro. You are down there. It's a lovely part of the state. I do love going down there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be down in your neck of the woods coming up this weekend.
Where are you going?
I'm going to be in Owatonna. I'm visiting some friends down there, and also I might actually head over to Waseca because I have I've got a friend over there that's apparently they went and picked some apples, and I need to. He called after I mentioned the
you and your apples.
I love the apples, but he did actually mention it. Said I got some apples you need to get, so I might have to run down 14 to go over to Waseca to get some there.
Well, it's a wonderful area. We're just maybe less than an hour south of the metro. We got Rochester to the east, Mankato to the west. Very centrally located, easy to get to everything, and it's a beautiful area.
Well, why don't you give everyone a little background? Who exactly is Joe Heegard?
Well, Joe Heegard, I grew up in Austin, which is further south from here. I was the youngest of 7 kids of a union meat packer. It was kind of back when a union meat packing job could afford you enough money to feed 7 kids. My dad ran the big spam cooker at Hormel in Austin.
Did he?
Yeah, he was a spam cooker guy. So every half hour they said he had to stop the machine and open up a can of spam and taste it and make sure it was okay. So you can bet we never had spam at home.
I love that job, by the way. I love the sounds of that.
And my mom was a bit of a social justice warrior on her own, and I think that's where I got my values of fairness, honesty from them. Let's see, after high school I joined the Army and went off, and I was gone for many years, traveling all over the place. And about 20 years ago, I decided to change careers and came back here and got into IT and settled down here, live in Owatonna with my wife, Myrna. And we raised a couple of daughters here in Owatonna, and now they're grown and gone, and I've got a little time on my hands.
I'm the youngest of 7 myself. I also was U.S. Army, too.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No, thank you, sir. And indeed, I appreciate that as well. So like I said, I never realized how much I was raised, and I love spam. And I also never realized how much I was raised as kind of a with my liberal progressive mentality until I got older. I realized my parents had raised me right. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, spam will do it.
Spam. It was the spam. This is why Minnesota is a great place, kids. Just know this, and Hawaii for some reason. I'm not quite sure.
And
there,
Hawaii.
But, yeah.
So more popular in Hawaii.
So you had so your kids have moved on. Is that really what was the instigator for you? What made you decide? 2018, I'm running for 24A.
No, I think it was just a few years ago, I just decided, and I think probably me and a lot of other people in the country decided, we just need to start getting more involved. We need to start doing something. My snarky Facebook comments are super hilarious, but they really weren't just getting anything done, So I started showing up and raising my hand, found myself, all of a sudden I'm a precinct chair, and then my wife and I are, delegates and then state delegates, and then I'm on the county DFL board. And then this spring I went to the county convention down here in Steele County and found out that our incumbent had no opponent at the time. So at that point I kind of thought, well, I guess maybe it's time to put up or shut up. So that was it right there. Hopped up on the stage, raised my hand again.
Well, and you want to know the truth is,
And
and I want to say something here. I am so darn glad you did because I think part of the problem the Democrats have had is in past election cycles, there are multiple races in outstate Minnesota where there's no opponent. And not only does that not give the local district a choice come election day, but it also allows the Republicans to divert all the money from that race and throw it into other races. So that
true,
when you have it, when you actually have a competition, that it basically forces them to be honest in the district, and they just can't take it for granted.
true. Well, I don't think they can take this one for granted.
Well, and
we're working hard down here.
Well, and I'm presuming, I'm looking at your district here, and this is back in 2016. Once again, this was a Republican year with Trump coming into the presidency. It was a 56-43, but as we have seen nationwide, it's a 20-point swing. This seat is very much within play. As the challenger. That's why it also is kind of disturbing. I'm glad you stepped forward because the fact that this was a seat that potentially could be won by the DFL, that's that we need to have someone running down there. Have you been going around in the district? I mean, I imagine the door knocking has been. You've got two larger metros in your district, so I imagine there's been quite a bit of door knocking for you.
There's a lot of door knocking, but a lot of the door knocking for me is pretty concentrated. It's two main towns, other than the rural areas are harder, but there are some districts that are so rural that people have to travel so far to door knock.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I've been door knocking since April because I was in the primary, so I had to win a primary first, so I had no time to wait. So yeah, we're very heartened by what we're hearing at the doors. I'm hearing people that are saying, I mean, I've literally had a lot of people say, you know what, I'm an independent and I don't vote for a party and I vote for the person, but not this year. I'm voting straight Democrat this year. I've literally heard people say that.
Well,
good for you. That's good. Now go vote.
Absolutely, and I mean that's something you're hearing. You are hearing a lot more of is that it's and I'm presuming healthcare, like pretty much every other district, that's been a main issue there. It's after being promised for how many years? Oh, you're going to get better healthcare, cheaper healthcare. The fact is, the Republicans at the state level and nationally, they have failed yet once again. And I think for a lot of people, that's the turning point. Is that we finally gave you the majority to do something, you didn't do it. And so now basically we're looking at more expensive health care, less coverage, pre-existing conditions, the choice of bankruptcy or death. And I think that's really kind of what's hit to home is the fact that people are asking the question, yeah, why can't we have affordable health care in this country?
Well, it's not only health care. I think, after I said, okay, I'll run, it was kind of the middle of the 2018 legislative session. And as that session went on, it just became more and more evident that just nothing was happening. Nothing was being done. No one was addressing healthcare. No one was addressing education funding. It just wasn't happening. And I like to tell the story, all of a sudden, nothing's happening. It's infuriating. All of a sudden, one day, front page story is they passed something. And you know what they passed? It's now illegal in Minnesota to buy a service dog vest for your dog if your dog's not a real service dog. And it's like, okay, people are dying, so that just infuriated me. But you mentioned healthcare, and I think the media, I think that's the most popular idea is that healthcare. But here, when I'm knocking on doors here, the most important issue I keep hearing is education funding, which is surprising to me, but that's what I hear most of. And I've spoken with a lot of people here. So, I have kind of pledged early on that, I'm going to take this job title seriously. It's representative, so what are the people concerned with?
Well, and I think when you talk about education funding, I think there's an undeniable problem in education funding, and it's not just rural schools; it's inner city schools as well up in the cities. There has not been the attention paid in St. Paul to fixing the funding issues so that the education system moves as smoothly as possible. And funding in rural counties is different than in the metro area, but they're both having the same problem, is that the funding is not working as it is currently set up. I think definitively, I mean, as you talk about representing your community, if you're hearing about that a lot, that's something that can be tackled by the DFL, and I think can be tackled effectively.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, it's just not fair to farmers to expect them to kick in an inordinate amount of property tax for some school funding, school funding bill. It's, richer communities can afford property tax increases. Poorer, more rural communities cannot. It's just not, it's not equitable.
And it's a case where, and obviously, as you mentioned there, I mean, we've talked to a lot of outstate Democrats who are saying our schools were built in 1920, 1930, and sure, there have been some renovations, but you said the exact thing. I mean, when people say it's to a point, it's arrogant in the metro area when people say, well, if they want to have better funding, just pass a referendum. Yeah, but when you're talking about mostly farming communities, rural communities, and they're already kind of counting the pennies there because the property values are not equivalent to an Edina or a Minnetonka, for goodness sakes. That that is not a viable option of continually going back and dipping into the well. And it's easy to see why referendums fail in rural communities, because the fact is that there's just only so much butter to spread on the bread there.
That's right. But it's still, I was talking to a corn and soybean farmer a week ago, and I would have thought, his priorities would have been, say, elsewhere. Education funding. It was what he was concerned with, and making sure that we get proper education funding. And how do we do that? By changing the way it's done. I thought that was tremendously interesting.
Well, and reminder, we had a Republican Party in this state where not that long ago, Tim Pawlenty threw the entire education budget into a future fiscal cycle just because he couldn't balance his budget. So that tells you how little they care about it. They're not going to fix this problem. They're not going to fix healthcare. And going back to what your comment was about the process here, when you have Omnibus Prime, I mean, I've talked to a few of the sitting representatives and they said, is there anything that was worse than having a bill where there were elements of that bill where every House member voted yes on that bill, but because Kurt Dowd and the Republican leadership in the House refused to individualize those bills, as the Constitution in the state says they have to, and put them out there, there's a lot of good things that could have gotten passed, more than the dog vest for service animals, and that had never had a chance because they became poker chips in a stare down between Kurt Dowd trying to force Governor Dayton's hand on to sign a bill that was obnoxious. So I think the process is broken when Republicans are in charge.
Right, I agree.
Yeah. It is a fantastic district. I'm presuming you do have, my love of apple orchards aside, I'm presuming that you do have a lot of volunteer opportunities and a lot of great things to do in 24A, that if someone wanted to come on down from the metro area, volunteer, door knock, phone call, help you out in any way, that they could do that for a few hours and then go have fun in 24A.
We could even find some apples.
I mean, there are very good apple orchards down in your neck of the woods, that's for sure. We've got
nothing but volunteer opportunities. I could use all the door knockers we could get. Absolutely.
And also donations. And here's the point in the conversation. I always say the same thing. Help your local Democrat, of course. But if you're in a district in the metro area where you've got a relatively safe Democrat, well, great. Help them out and then get out into a red district and help an outstate Democrat. This blue wave is not going to happen by social media posts and bubblegums and prayers. It's going to happen. It's going to happen by knocking on every door in a district and letting them know the DFL is a viable option. And I guarantee you they'll get a lot more done for you than the Republicans have. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
How can people get in touch with your campaign, Joe, if they want to help out?
Well, my website's pretty easy. It's joeheegard.com. JoeHeegard.
.com.
.com.
There you go. We'll link to that and all the social media stuff a little bit later on this afternoon. Joe, all my best in 24A. You're an absolute...
Matt,
Yes, sir.
can I share a quick story with you?
Sure, by all means.
I just want to, a couple of weeks ago, I just met so many, this has been so rewarding, and met so many great people out knocking on doors in the area. Just a couple of weeks ago, I knocked on a door and this woman came out and she said, "What are your thoughts on gun control?" And before I can even open my mouth, she said, about a year ago, my daughter called me screaming because she was crouching at an outdoor concert in Las Vegas while bullets were raining down on her. And I couldn't believe it. So the woman here in Owatonna. And yesterday was the anniversary of that shooting. I stopped by their house last evening, just let them know what I was thinking. It's just so upsetting. And one other thing I might want to mention about things not getting done. This past year, the Democrats tried to introduce some legislation banning bump stocks and never even got a vote.
Nope.
So worth a mention.
And you and I are Army. I have seen,
Yes.
I am seeing what these weapons can do. I know how lethal they are. Were designed to kill human beings in combat. And
Right.
the idea that we allow these things to be sold en masse in our streets, even when we have these massive shootings like Las Vegas, if we don't fix this problem, this will only get worse. And I agree with you. We have to make some. I mean, as much as the gun lobby has been working as hard as they can to basically ensure these slaughters happen on an almost regular basis, if we don't step in there and start trying to address this issue, it's a tough issue. It's not going to get fixed.
Got to fix it somehow.
Absolutely.
Okay, Matt.
Joe, thank you very much. Thanks for the story. All my best to that family. If you get the chance to stop on by again, tell them I said all my best as well. And all my best in your race down in 24A.
Thanks, Matt.